Hello everybody and welcome into the Sports Update for this week. My name is Brian Dunn and on this week's Sports Update we take a deep dive into the nuts and bolts of what the fall sports season will look like. It's been a busy couple weeks of planning, organizing, and scheduling, but the fall sports season will be all systems go in a couple weeks. I sat down with Athletic Director John Longley and a few others to investigate the new normal for high school sports.
We're going to provide a competitive environment where kids can learn and grow and have fun.
The game is on, but certainly won't be the same. Field hockey, boys and girls soccer, golf, and boys and girls cross country have been given the go-ahead to proceed with the fall one sports season, with a lot of modifications that have been put in place to ensure the safety of the athletes, coaches, and staff.
Those individual sport committees met after the guidelines were released. So they met and took a look at the guidelines and developed modifications and then released them. So that's really, that wasn't something done at the local level or even at the league level. Those are done by the sport committees at the MIAA. So that's how that's played out.
Some of the more generic across-the-board changes is that masks or face coverings will be worn for all events. Gaiters are acceptable and masks can be taken off briefly for any period in the play where there is proper distance. The distancing poses a problem for moderate sports that involve some contact, such as field hockey and boys and girls soccer. Modifications to these sports include the removal of penalty corners in field hockey, throw-ins are now kick-ins in soccer, and there will be staggered starts in cross country. All of these modifications are designed to limit contact and proximity.
With social distancing, we may have to start in waves. So you might have 5 kids from each school on the starting line first, 6 feet apart. They'll go, and then a stopwatch will be going, and then after a minute, the next wave will go. And then during the race, athletes are encouraged not to run close together, which again, a little challenge because you're racing against somebody, so you want to pass somebody, they're not going to just let you go. So that's going to be a challenge dealing with that. How do we cope with that? The finish of the race is then different as well in that you traditionally have one chute set up, people cross the line, the official makes the call, and then they line up in order and people take the numbers down. Now it's going to be 2 chutes are set up, one for one school, one for the other. They have to be 30 feet apart, and that's going to pose a challenge as well.
The big one is that instead of 11v11, we're going to be playing 7v7 now. It's not totally unfamiliar to us. Typically, in the past, we have practiced 7v7. It used to be used in the tournament. Once you get to the tournament, there's obviously you need a winner. So in overtime, you would go down to playing 7v7 until somebody was able to score. So the girls are familiar with that. We have practiced it. Typically, we don't practice it till towards the end of the season. It's obviously a lot more space to cover with fewer players, but I believe that that kind of plays into the social distancing of the sport and this new time that we're all living in.
I mean, obviously it's upsetting to not have the season that I've had the past 3 years, but I didn't really see any season happening, so to just have even this short half season is worth it to me.
One of the key decisions made in this year's fall season was the decision by the Tri-Valley League to not allow spectators to attend events. The issue of contact tracing played a major role in the decision to exclude fans from attendance this fall.
I think the principals voted on that unanimously to not allow spectators. Some of the points around it is the contact tracing and the viability of being able to do that, and then decisions around, technically you would be allowed to have maybe up to 50 people in attendance, but how do you but you have to contact trace them, and the league decided to move the games to the weekends so that we could have a kind of contained environment, that we would limit practices during the week to kind of limit exposure. And then also, grouping the league into pods, again, to limit the exposure. So how do you determine who can come? How do you administer contact tracing? How do you, people access, stay, then leave after the next? So it was kind of thought of this would be a whole nother layer of, a big challenge administratively to try and pull that off.
It's a new era in high school sports, as everyone prepares to go into this season with a new game plan and mindset. But one thing that remains the same is the energy and the buzz that is still there for the start of the season.
I mean, some people are obviously mad that we have to change. It won't be as physical, but some people are like me, just happy to have any type of season. But we seem to be having 100% return. It's not like a lot of people are like, I'm not playing. So hopefully it's good.
Really, it's sport going back to its truest form. When I was doing a lot of research about youth sports in my younger days, one thing that they always talked about was when they polled kids and said, what's the most important thing to you about playing a sport? The number one answer year after year in all these national polls was I want to have fun. Honestly, every year. It wasn't I want to win. It wasn't I want to get a scholarship. It wasn't you know what I mean. It was I want to have fun, and we're going to provide a competitive environment where kids can learn and grow and have fun. And we will have records and things like that. These aren't going to be scrimmages. They're real games. And they'll be a little bit modified, of course, and we'll work within those guidelines.
And on the note, we know the news of no fans have taken a hit for a lot of families. However, NCM has been working with the athletic department to create an action plan for live sports coverage this season. Stay tuned to NCM for updates on what games we'll be covering this year and times. Also in sports news this week, due to COVID-19, the Norwood High School Athletic Hall of Fame has postponed this year's induction ceremony. President Brian McDonough issued this statement. Quote, with so much uncertainty about the near future, the committee feels it is best to postpone the ceremony until next year. We do not feel a virtual presentation will be fair or proper way to recognize the 2020 class of inductees. The committee will not add any new members to this year's group of inductees, end quote. We'll stay in touch with Brian throughout the process and update you any further notices that may come. And that's all for sports this week. Thank you for tuning in. Kristen, back to you.